Hello and welcome to I24 News Sports Daily Magazine with all the latest scores and stories from around the world. Thursday evening, the weekend is almost here, and these are the headlines. The Heat and the Spurs seem to be destined to face each other again in the NBA Finals. Both teams have already made their way to their respective conference finals. When there are 4 kids at home, 2 are newborn twins, there's not a lot of time to rest. Roger Federer is now facing that. Did he pay the price at the Rome Open? We look at the constant clash between club and coach. Were there coaches who were bigger than the club itself? And why are they always the first to be out if something is wrong? And we go back to the top 5 events from this past week. Rafael Nadal is in, so is the controversy around Tevez and Nasri, NBA and Spanish football as well, as any of them are number 1. Hello again and thank you for joining us. We are live from the Jaffa Port. We begin today with the final of the Europa League. Could Benfica go one step further than they did last year when they lost in the final? Or will it be Seville taking the trophy home for the 3rd time in 8 years? Well, the Spanish domination in this competition continued. Teams from La Liga won the Europa League 6 times in the past 11 seasons. Seville became one of only 4 clubs who won this trophy 3 times. It was goalless after 90 minutes and extra time, and in the penalties, Seville's goalkeeper Beto was the hero. He stopped 2 of Benfica's penalties, leaving their fans heartbroken again. The team from Andalusia wins 4-2 in penalties, and after a long and difficult journey, now it's time to celebrate.
Entonces se ha culminado con esta victoria, lógicamente.
To win, you also have to suffer, and we learned that lesson, and that is why we are the winners tonight. We suffered against Betis, we suffered against Valencia, we suffered with Porto, but nonetheless, we've always remained competitive.
Foi grande jogo, grande final.
It was a great final, a great match. Both teams struggled equally tonight. Sevilla got off to a better start than us, but with the passing of time, we improved our game, and in the end, we were the better team.
Jorge Jesus is obviously disappointed. He was so close to have 2 Europa League titles under his belt, but he lost them both. And it will be interesting to see how the club judges him, as the man who already won 2 titles with the club this season and may win 1 more, or as the man who lost 2 European titles. The question of the relationship between clubs and their managers is fascinating. Some clubs keep their managers for years regardless of the results. Other clubs don't hesitate to make constant changes. Lise Barnbaum takes a look at this fascinating world.
Worshipped or hated, coaches are the souls of their clubs. When the team wins, they become idols, but when it loses, they're often the ones who pay the price. Coaches in Premier League clubs are legends. Sir Alex Ferguson spent 26 seasons at the head of Manchester United. He won 13 English championships, 2 Champions Leagues, 5 FA Cups throughout his career. The Red Devils coach even has his own statue at the entrance of Old Trafford. And in absolute honor, he was knighted by the Queen of England in 1999 for services to British football. In 2013, when he announced he's departing the team, fans were upset.
He's a legend, an absolute legend, the best manager the world has ever seen. No one will ever repeat what he's done.
It's quite a sad day, really. This is the end of an era with Fergie and that. I'm only 24 years old, so all I've grown up to be is Fergie really is the manager.
A legacy that's almost impossible to match, David Moyes was appointed to succeed him. Less than a year after his appointment, the former Everton coach was fired. He was blamed for the Red Devils dropping to 7th in the rankings, and fans are happy to get rid of this mediocre successor.
Because you weren't getting the results that you expected at Manchester United, but could have had more time, but his results weren't going his way, and he didn't look like he was going to do anything.
For other coaches, Moyes' firing is symptomatic of our times. Coaches are fired quickly, even without conclusive results, and some regret that.
I'm sad that he wasn't given time, and I wish him well, and I think it's just part of what the modern game is now.
The most English French coach, Arsène Wenger, led Arsenal for 18 years, and he can also boast that he has his own statue in England. With him, the Gunners improved. In 1,000 games, they won 579 times and took home 11 trophies. He has his own style, a taciturn but effective omnipotent manager. But he doesn't hesitate to denounce the waltz of current coaches in the Premier League.
It's the first time since I'm here in England that so many managers in the Premier League have been changed.
But unusual coaches exist outside of football stadiums. Philippe Lucas, the very charismatic coach of L'Or Manadou, has rocked the world of French swimming. With his biker look and his way of speaking, it's thanks to him that this young talent succeeded in the Athens Olympics of 2004. Yet his pupil abandoned him without manners in 2007. In the United States, there are many iconic coaches in the NBA. Doc Rivers is not only brilliant on the court as the head of the LA Clippers, he also didn't hesitate to defend his team and his players when the Donald Sterling racism saga broke out.
I'm a basketball coach and trying to handle this and really more for your team and your players. That's my concern. That's my job.
The coach is ultimately the father, the guide and the soul of his team. Without him, it's difficult for an athlete to fully succeed.
The guide and the soul of Atletico Madrid is without a doubt manager Diego Simeone. He's heading into the biggest week of his career. 2 wins will make him Spanish champion and European champion, and the sports columns in this week's newspapers are asking if he can actually do it. The story and more in this week's press review.
Ahead of Saturday's matchup between Atletico and Barcelona, Tim Stannard of Football 365 asks if Atletico blew their last chance. Willy Caballero's save at the end of last weekend's game versus Malaga ended the Rojiblancos' hopes of winning the title before season's end. Stannard says that even though coach Diego Simeone is highlighting the bright side, it, quote, really feels like the chance is gone for Atletico Madrid, and he questions whether Barca's stars will finally be able to rise to the occasion with this new chance. There are so many questions before the game, but by Saturday evening, we'll have all the answers. And by then, some of the players can shift their focus to the World Cup. But one player who won't be focusing or playing in the games in Brazil is Argentinian Carlos Tevez. On Fox Sports, the 30-year-old Juventus forward did not make coach Alejandro Sabela's preliminary 30-man roster. Sabela has not selected Tevez since he became coach back in 2011. Tevez is third in Serie A with 19 goals and helped his team win the Italian League title. He has 13 goals in international appearances. We haven't heard much reaction from Tevez, but Samir Nasri's girlfriend made enough noise for the both of them. Nasri was left off the French roster for the World Cup, even though he had just helped Manchester City win the Premier League title last weekend. Angered by the decision, his girlfriend took to Twitter to tell everyone exactly how she felt about the decision, with a few expletives aimed at the French team. After cooling down, she clarified herself and sent out another message saying her remarks were aimed just at the French national team, not France itself. Nasri, on the other hand, responded on Twitter saying thank you for the messages of support, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And what will this week be without a mention of Donald Sterling? After the owner went on CNN and bashed Magic Johnson, the NBA legend did an interview of his own. On Time, Johnson said Sterling is, quote, living in the Stone Age and called him delusional. Sterling was supposed to be issuing an apology on AC 360 earlier this week, but instead gained even more negative attention by talking about Magic, saying he doesn't do anything for black people. But Magic said he sees himself as one of the leaders of the black community and said he felt he needed to respond. And lastly, a controversial Oklahoma City win over the LA Clippers that came down to the last seconds and possibly a blown call. In Sports Illustrated, Clippers head coach Doc Rivers was infuriated after the game, saying, quote, everybody knows it was our ball, and we got robbed because of that call. He even went as far as to say the NBA should take away the replay system. The Thunder escaped at home with an incredible 9-0 run in the last 45 seconds of the game. That last less than a minute saw a few questionable mistakes by the officials, 2 Chris Paul turnovers, and a foul on CP3, which led to 3 Westbrook free throws. The first round of the playoffs were a roller coaster ride, but the second round series between the Thunder and Clippers is definitely even a better follow-up.
And we'll continue with the NBA, where the Western Conference champions, the San Antonio Spurs, had to struggle to go past the Mavericks in the first round, a completely different story in the semis. The Blazers were no real match for the Spurs so far. San Antonio came into Game 5 with a 3-1 lead, and this game looked pretty much the same as the previous ones. Portland was able to hang on in the first quarter, but the Spurs started their breakaway in the second. The Blazers knew they had to win here to keep the series alive. They were down by 7 at halftime. But after the break, San Antonio did not give them any chance to take the series back to Portland. Look at Kawhi Leonard leaving 2 defenders behind as if they were not there, and it's already a double-digit lead. Early in the fourth, Danny Green nailed a 3, and the game is over. San Antonio wins 104-82 and will once again play in the Western Conference Finals. And as it seems, we may be on the way to a repeat of last year's final. The Heat are also already qualified to their conference final. Game 5 was no game in the park for Miami. The Nets were up by 8 deep in the fourth quarter, but the Heat went on a 12-0 run, finally winning the game 96-94 and booked themselves in the Eastern Finals. Will there also be a repeat of last season in the East? The Pacers need just one more win over the Wizards. They can do it tonight. Game 6 is in DC, and in LA, the Clippers will try to even their crazy series against the Thunder. Any parent to a small kid knows it's not easy to get a good night's rest when he's around. But what happens when you have 4 of them? 2 of them newly born twins? Well, ask Roger Federer. Just a week after becoming a father again to twins again, Roger Federer took to the court in Rome in a second-round match against French Jérémy Chardy. The Swiss master passed on the Madrid Open last week and had a bye in the first round here, so this was his first match since becoming a father of 4. He seemed to be doing very well in the first set, which he won 6-1, but he lost the next 2, the last one on a tiebreak. Fatigue? Perhaps, but we're sure it's worth it. Now, as the week is ending, it's time to look at the top 5 plays and moments of the week that is ending. Number 5 goes to one of the best free kicks we have ever seen. It was not a beautiful curve past the wall, no deflection along the way, just a beautiful trick to break the wall and leave the road open to the net. 4 different players jumping over the wall. Someone in the wall leaves his position, time to shoot in, beautiful execution. Number 4 goes to Rafael Nadal, who is back to winning tournaments on clay, just ahead of Roland Garros. It was not an impressive victory. Kei Nishikori was actually in control until he injured his back, but the Madrid Open title is obviously a big confidence boost for the man known as the King of Clay, who will now look to defend his title in Paris. World Cup controversies are at number 3. The World Cup squads are published these days with some big names in, but also some big names out. In France, Samir Nasri will not make the trip to Brazil, and same story across the Atlantic. Carlos Tevez was left out of the Argentine squad, causing great disappointment for many Albiceleste fans. The Western Conference semifinals between the LA Clippers and the Oklahoma City Thunder are at number 2. Oklahoma was up by 22 in Game 4, but they still lost it. The Clippers were up by 7 with 50 seconds to go in Game 5. They also lost it. Game 6 is tonight. We don't know who will win, but we are sure there will be drama. And our number 1 choice for this week goes to the Spanish League with a gigantic championship match coming up. Both leaders are struggling on the final stretch, unable to win their latest matches, but one of these 2, Atletico Madrid and Barcelona, will end up smiling after their duel on Saturday. One of them will be the champion, the other will be left disappointed. Can one athlete change the way a whole country looks at a specific sport? The example of Kenya shows that it's possible. Chris Froome, who was born and raised in the African country, and this is where he first fell in love with cycling, now he's one of the leading riders in the world. More and more Kenyans find interest in the sport, which has become very popular in the East African nation.
In a village outside the Kenyan capital, a series of rusty iron structures is home to the Safari Simbas cycling team. But within the simple dwellings, a lot has changed since one of its favorite old boys, Chris Froome, ascended to the pinnacle of world cycling, winning last year's Tour de France.
He never was afraid to try new challenges on the bicycle. And now that he won the Tour de France, he's one of the greatest riders in the world, and that means a lot to us. And there's a lot of attention now turned to Kenya from all walks of life.
Having mentored Froome in his early days, the experienced cyclist David Kinja is the founder of the Safari Simbas project, where he continues to nurture young Kenyan talent. Safari Simbas trains Kenyans from disadvantaged communities in the art of the bike. The best athletes have gone on to become professional cyclists, But the project also helps the boys escape poverty and pay for education from their race winnings and by doing bicycle repair work.
The bike really changed my life because I used to go with the bike to school and I started winning some small races and I could pay some of my school fees or buy some uniform.
Though Kenyans have long dominated endurance sports like marathons, they have yet to achieve a similar profile in cycling. Nonetheless, a number of Eritrean, Ethiopian, Rwandan, and South African cyclists are already competing in Europe, and Kinja believes it won't be long before black riders start competing in the Tour de France.
I would like to be like the first, or if not the first, but the strong black African representing all the Africans in the world, because it's so challenging that we don't have any blacks in the Tour de France, in the big races, so I want to change that.
And that's it for us today. Don't forget, you can watch us anytime on our website at i24news.tv. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you for watching and have a beautiful day.